Now let's add the lights. Switch to top view and let's import a light. And let's import a light with Shift A and choose an area light. Move it a little bit out of the way, and with this little yellow spot, here you can make this bigger. You can move it a bit up, and then of course we can point it towards our ring. And right away this should not have a lot of effect, because usually these lights get imported with very, very weak strength. Just to show you the difference with or without lighting, let's create the shader viewport once more. By the way, if you don't want to open up the shader viewport like that, you can just switch to the shading workspace up here. But then we can't work on the layout at the same time. So I like to just create my own workspace plus shader down here. And if you go to the world and you just disconnect these two for a second, then you see the true intensity of this light. And if you just type 1 in there, it will instantly light up very bright. So we will have to give it some value between 0 and 1. Why not 100 milliwatts, so 0.1. So the sky shader is for an even environmental glow. The lights are to make it pop. You can use the plane shaded viewport to add and move around all the stuff and see the result in the render preview next to it. You can press Shift D and just copy the light and then rotate it to the other side. Or you can take this little yellow dot and point it towards the ring, and then you can see it update in real time on the right. There's a little fun bonus that you can use to make it easier to move the lights around without losing the focus on the ring, which would be to give the light a constraint. And you can say track 2, and you can say the target would be the ring band. And now if you move the light around, it will always focus on the ring band. I probably won't do that here too much, because I like to have some more control about how the light points, and in this way it will always point at one exact spot. But if you want to do that and give the light an object constraint, that could help you to just make the lights focus on the ring all the time. Okay, so I will get rid of that again, and you see the light jumps back to its position without the constraint. Well, and in this way you can also then, once you're satisfied with the lighting situation, you can also turn the background back on to get a feel for how these two look together. And maybe you realize that the light is too strong and you can turn it down a little bit. Or you notice that the background sky texture is too strong, and of course you can turn it down as well. And always make sure to double check how it looks with and without the sky texture to just get the best possible outcome in your render. I always look for a beautiful, well-lit scene, and the details should be visible, but depending on what effect you want to achieve, you might need more or less lights, or you might want to get rid of the background sky texture altogether because you want to have a more moody, atmospheric, candlelit kind of scene. And you can also lower the light temperature a little bit, make it a little bit reddish, and in this way you can, of course, control the way that the whole scene looks and the whole feel of the scene. And if you notice, by the way, that this on the right here updates very slowly, you can go into the render settings and you can decrease the preview samples for cycles. So you could say, okay, I want as max samples in the viewport only 200, for example. So if you move around here, it will only render 200 samples instead of 1024. Of course, you can also turn denoise on. In the actual render, denoise is turned on automatically. I usually like to have 3 lights, which I kind of locate in a 120-degree pattern around the model. And we can play with different light temperatures here. You can play with some colorful accents if you like. So there, everything is possible. And of course, you can always turn off the sky texture to see the effect. And this, for example, gives it a more LED-like lighting situation, as if it was lit by some colored LEDs and not so much a natural lighting. If you want to have some more control over how the background color affects the ring, and also be able to kind of play with the visibility of the shadow, then you can create a half or full box. And you can do this with a plane. First, you can scale that up a little bit, maybe exclude Z by pressing S and Shift Z, and then scale that up. And then you can take an edge or two edges of the plane and just pull it up with E and Z. And you instantly notice that this took away this shadow that the sun from the sky texture casts. You might notice when I move this, you can see the shadow moving from the big white plane that we just created. Then, of course, you can rotate this along Z, and you can also play with the different ways this affects the surface color of the ring. And of course, this becomes even more visible if you change the background color of the plane. In this way, you have a lot of control over the mood of the scene as well. One more thing, if you want to hide the sharp edge in the corner of the plane, you can just give it a subdivision surface modifier, like that. Of course, it should be ramped up a little bit, maybe to 2. And then in edit mode, you can add more edges with Ctrl R and pull them down a little bit, and that will give this edge of the plane a little bit more definition. Also along here, and maybe along here. And this way you can hide the corner, but not so much that it is super curved. And then you can also right click and say Shade Smooth. And that will make this edge a lot smoother. And if you select here these edges with Alt click and you move them up, you can control how edgy this plane becomes. Okay, so that is a way to be able to influence the background visibility. All right, so that looking quite nice already. Let me just quickly save an incremental version. And that will just save another version of your file with a number behind it, or it will increment any number that it finds. So if you have, I don't know, cool ring number 1, it will make cool ring number 2 next to it. So now, finally, we will need a camera to be able to actually render that. And a very easy way of doing that, I mean, we have a camera here, and you could just press Ctrl 0 to fly into it, and then you would see the camera view, or you could do this on this side. Or what you can actually also do, you can zoom out, press 5, so as to get out of, well, if that happens and you don't know where you are, you can press Shift C, and that should bring you back to a nice placement in the scene. It will also bring the 3D cursor back to the center, which might be cool for you as well, because then you can rotate the lights around the 3D cursor. Okay, but what I wanted to say, so if you want the camera to jump exactly to that view that you're currently at, and you want it to see what you're seeing right there, then you can press Ctrl Alt 0. And if this happens and you can't see anything, it might be that the clipping settings of the camera are set too low. So here under the camera settings, you might set these end settings to, I don't know, something like 10,000. And that should bring you into a view where the ring is visible again.